In this video, I'm going to show you how to use story to make your vlogs more interesting. So stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back to Teaching Thursdays. Today we're going to go into part 3 of the How to Vlog series. Today we're going to talk about story. But before we do that, if you're new to this channel and this is your first time watching one of my videos, welcome. My name is Castro. I vlog 5 days a week. Most of the days are themed, and today is Thursday. Thursdays I do Teaching Thursdays, where I teach you guys how to do something that I'm either learning or have learned, and I want to share it as a way to reinforce it in myself. So if you want to learn with me to become a better vlogger, or just explore that San Diego lifestyle with me, hit that subscribe button and let's get going. Alright, so this is part 3 of our How to Vlog series, and today we're going to talk about story and how to use a story to make your vlogs more interesting. So there I was, trying to stay calm. Face down, swimming along the surface towards shore. Snorkel in my mouth, mask on my face, straining to see through the murk. The water visibility was about 10 to 8 feet. I lift my face out of the water to see how far ahead my first dive buddy is, and he looks like he's about 10-15 feet ahead of me. Then I turn around and all I see is water thrashing. Yeah, so why story? It's human nature, right? Once you hear the beginning of a story, if it sounds something interesting, you're gonna want to listen to the whole thing to find out what happens. Part of your instincts is to want to hear what happens, because whether you know it or not, you're trying to see what the point of it was or what lesson you can learn from it. So since humans have been using stories since before we could read and write, our minds are fine-tuned to listen for them and try to learn from them. It's like the most effective way for us to communicate, to transmit knowledge. Well, let's just do an example, right? So this is why I say it's the most effective. It might not be the most economic. Like it might take longer than if you just gave me the facts. But you tell me what's more interesting, right? But if I said, hey, you shouldn't fake being hurt, because when you really get hurt, when you ask for help, people won't believe you, or you won't be able to get help, right? So that's the moral of the story, right? This is and if you guessed, you know I'm talking about the boy that cried wolf, right? It's much easier to learn that lesson or to grasp that lesson if I tell you the story of the boy that cried wolf, as opposed to just tell you the moral of the story, right? If I just told you the moral of the story, it won't stick. It's not. You don't experience it as much as you would as if you actually heard the whole story. So that's why you want to add that story element into your vlogs, so that people get hooked at the beginning and they want to see the progression of events and it can give them the opportunity to root for you. All right, so a few weeks before that day, I went to our club meeting. I was totally new to the sport of spearfishing, and I didn't even have a spear gun at the time. This was one of those events where the seasoned divers bring their old gear that they're probably trying to get rid of from their garage, and they call it a gear swap. Basically, you bring old gear and you either trade with other people or you outright sell it to other people, right? One of the guys was selling a old spear gun that needed some repair. I ended up buying it for like $5. I bought the thing, I replaced the bands on it. I was like super excited to have a new spear gun, my first spear gun. I ended up going diving with that very same guy. That was the guy that was in the froth. It's kind of funny how the way it connects. So this guy was more experienced than I was, of course, and he took us out. He took me and another guy out, and the other guy was like, I think that was like his first time diving, and I think it was my second time on a shore dive. So we were pretty green. I took a dive and I saw a nice silhouette of a fish, and I took the shot. But the shot wasn't great. I actually ended up shooting it in the belly. All of his guts were everywhere. We ended up just cleaning the fish basically in the water. So that was probably not a good idea. The reasoning behind that is that you didn't want all that stomach contents to ruin like the meat of the fish. I was so new, I didn't even have what's called a stringer. A stringer is basically either a cord or a clip you use to attach the fish to your weight belt, so you can carry them around while you're spearfishing. The guy that took us out, the guy that sold me the gun, offered to carry the fish for me. So he did. He put my fish on his stringer, and we continued to fish. We're taking turns diving. I take my next turn. I come up. And when I come up, I hear, "Roman, get over here." And I was like, ooh, that doesn't sound good. It sounded like there's a little bit of worry in his voice. I started kind of like got really nervous. I start swimming towards him. They're huddled together, and they tell me, right, when you dove this last time, as you were swimming away from us, we saw a shark swim under us in your direction. I was like, oh man. we agreed that we would start to head into shore, so just to get out of the water basically. The least experienced guy went first, and then I went behind him, and then the guy that took us out was behind me. So that's basically where we picked up the story at the beginning of the video. So now we're going to talk a little bit about story structure. What makes a story? There's different models for stories. It could go as basic as beginning, middle, and end. So introduction, increasing climax, decreasing climax, and then end, right? And there's even more complicated story structures that they use, for example, in like full featured Hollywood movies, right? Like with different characters and how all different characters interact. Those are not something that we could probably adapt. Eventually it's something I would like to adapt for vlogging, but for now we're just going to stick with the real basic story structure. So the real basic story structure is you have a beginning where you establish what is normal, right? And then you have something happen, and some people call that the explosion, or the climax, right? Something happened, and then you have the new normal, because whatever event happened, it's got to be big enough or significant enough that it changes what used to be normal to something that's to the new normal, right? So those are the three pieces, and then we'll add to that in a sec. So in the case of my shark story, and this story isn't made up. This is a real story. I'm just using it as an example of the story structure. So in my story, the crash or the climax or the explosion is when that shark hits my friend, right? So I look back, and the water's thrashing, and it's like a scene out of a movie almost. All I see is like white foam and stuff, and I'm like freaking out because I'm thinking any second is gonna turn red, right? And then like I watch Jaws, right? So it's probably ruined me. So I start swimming towards it. As I start swimming towards it, I put my face in the water, and I look, and I see the shark on his calf. So from your perspective, you're me. This is his body floating in the water. This is his body in the water, and this is the shark on his calf. I think it's this way, on his calf. He's doing this, and he's hitting it with the back of his spear gun over here, and then the shark's kind of doing this, and then right as I put my face in the water, I see the shark do this. So it's here, and I see the shark do this. So it swings its head to its left, and then to its right, and to its left again. And as it's doing this, I shoot it with my spear gun right like almost shish kebab it through its gill, or like close to its gill, and it just takes off. What's going on with this guy? Is he gonna be bleeding out right now? What? I don't even know what to expect. So I do a couple kicks. I get to him, and I'm just like trying to assess what's going on, if he's okay. And he's like, before I even ask, he's like, yeah, I'm okay. And I'm like, all right, let's go. So we like swim out. We make it to shore, and he's got his calf, his wetsuit on his calf has like the bite marks of the teeth. But it was weird. The weird thing is that the teeth didn't penetrate all the way through the suit, so his skin was fine. Like it didn't even break his skin. But you do see like where the teeth were on the neoprene and the shell covering the neoprene. It was pretty crazy. It was a crazy experience. So now we're going to add to that story structure. Who is fighting who for what? So in addition to having a beginning, explosion, and an end, you need to establish and let the audience know who the main character is. So in the case of a vlog, it's usually always going to be you, or you and a friend, or your family, or your kids, or even your pets, if that's what you're going to vlog about that day. But then they have to have something they want to accomplish. Also, there's got to be some kind of adversarial resistance to that, right? So what's keeping them from getting to that goal, or from accomplishing that? So who is fighting who for what, right? So that'll make your vlogs a whole lot more interesting. And so let's talk about all those different pieces, okay? So it's who is fighting who for what, and on top of that, what's going to make this even better is how does fighting for that change the main character, or you, the vlogger, right? And in my case, in the case of the shark story or the shark experience, I was flipped out on sharks. I was like scared, but I knew if I didn't get in the water that next day, I would probably talk myself out of spearfishing and never do it again, right? So I committed to going the next day, And I went the next day, and it was scary. I felt like something was about to bite me the whole time. And it wasn't a long session. It was a super short session. So I left, and then I came back the next day and forced myself to go again. And it took me about, I'd say like almost 2 months for it to completely be, not even completely, to be, for me to start to enjoy diving again without that constant nagging fear of like, oh man, is there a shark gonna get me right now? Is there a shark gonna get me right now? Right. Since then, what I've learned is that the whole situation was kind of like a lot of things went wrong for that to happen, right? And a lot of that was like ignorance on our part. The water was super murky, right? Sharks, when the sharks use scent to find food, right? And we gutted that fish in the water, and he was towing basically a bloody fish, right? And then the visibility wasn't that great, so the shark was probably going by just pure by smell. So then once it got close enough to him, the fish was dangling by my friend's calf. So the shark could have easily been trying to get the fish, and it's flopping in the swell close to my friend's leg, and the fish just probably bit his calf thinking that was a fish because it smelled like it, or it was floating right by it. And then once it realized it was not a fish, it didn't really put the squeeze on him. It just kind of like came off, and as it came off, it was just not his lucky day. It was just like pure dumb luck that he ended up coming off and going in the direction that I was happening to be coming from, where I was like already scared, nervous for my friend. I wasn't sure what the damage was on him, and it probably wasn't coming after me. It was probably just trying to get away. It just happened to try to get away the wrong direction, right? Anyway, so what changed me was like, hey, you know what? Like, sharks aren't out to eat people, right? They're out like any other animal would be to try to get food. And if a spear fisherman is carrying a fish, it's easy food for them. My change is that before all this happened, my only experience with a shark was that of like Hollywood movies, right? Like Jaws, where it's like, man, they're man-eating machines and they're out to get you. And they're not. They're just sea creatures. They're beautiful sea creatures out there, very graceful, trying to live, right? They probably wouldn't bother you if you didn't have any food on you. Now I learned to appreciate a shark, and I've seen sharks since then and been okay with them. Swum with a bunch of different types of sharks. So the lesson I learned now in retrospect is that sharks are not out to get you. They're just another sea creature trying to live its life. All right, so now let's break down how you can use this who is fighting who for what, plus a lesson learned structure for your vlogs, okay? Beginning, middle, and end, right? So here we go. So who is, like we talked about earlier, it's almost always going to be you, the vlogger, or someone that you're featuring on your vlog. And then there's got to be a reason for you to feature them. There's got to be a reason for you to make that video. Tell us what's at stake. Who is you, is fighting who, and is fighting who can be anything, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be another person. It doesn't have to be fighting against. It can be competing with, right? Or it can be other things like nature or time, right? Like, oh, in this, or like, oh, I'm trying to get to the train station before. Like Casey Neistat does this all the time. His adversary is a lot of times is time, right? So when he's trying to get to the airport on time, and the whole time you're watching him do other random things, like go get a smoothie or something, or ride a skateboard, or like stop by the office really fast, and the whole time what are you thinking? Oh man, you're gonna miss your flight. You're gonna miss your flight. So it's kind of like he tells you right off the bat what's at stake, and then you are rooting for him to get to the airport on time, right? And then to make it even better, right? You don't necessarily have to say this out loud into the camera, but you can show it somehow, right? Like what doing that taught you, right? So in the case of like Casey, right, where he goes out to where he's gonna miss his flight, well, he sometimes is able to get on the flight like right in the nick of time. Like he'll have like some kind of pass, or like he'll talk to somebody, and that's like a little hack that you can probably learn, right? Or he just completely misses it, and then you see what happens when you miss your flight. Like it's a whole another nightmare, right? But once your audience knows what's at stake and who the players are and what your goal is, then they have the opportunity to kind of cheer you along, or maybe cheer against you, right? Either way, they're going to be cheering for you or against you. Either way, they're going to be watching it. And then from there, you just kind of make sure you have all the footage you need to show all those pieces. That's like the That's the basics of how to use story to make your vlogs better. I'm sorry, it sounds like it might sound super complicated. I'm hearing myself explain it, and it all makes sense in my head, but I know you guys are gonna have questions. So if you have any questions, just leave them and we'll kind of go through those and figure out a better way for me to describe that to you. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this video. I hope it helps you make better vlogs. Next Thursday, for Teaching Thursdays, I'm gonna do part 4 of this series, how to vlog. And I'm going to basically do a screen capture of my editing process on a short video to show you guys how I go through the footage, cut it up, use only scenes that I want to, cut it up into short sentences. Remember how we talked about that in lesson 2 or part 2, and then how I do transitions, how I do the text, and then how I add music to it. So I'll show you the whole process from beginning to end, and I'll be talking over the video as I'm doing the editing. I might even just do like a time lapse of it, so it doesn't take that long, because it takes a long time. If you want to watch this, how to vlog series from the start, check out this playlist up here. Click here for the previous episode, or click here for the next episode of this series. All right, so thank you for watching, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't hit it already. See you guys tomorrow.